people from the margins, from subsistence agriculture.
Okay, so I was invited by my colleagues and fellow activists to come and share our political economy analysis of the corporate food regime, principally, and unpack some key themes around concentration and consolidation in the input sector, but also across the value chain, and to talk about particularly corporate control and domination over our seed systems. I spoke a little bit about genetic engineering and the role of technologies, and described how some technologies are not in the public interest and do not benefit society. And yesterday I think that we had very good discussions about the paradoxical nature of economic systems, of progress, the contradictions. And I think that what became clear is that the participants are not only very diverse, but have a very good understanding and grasp of the ecological crisis in the world, the role of capitalism, patriarchy, that yes, there are some very context-specific differences, but that we're all locked in to a dominant food regime and a dominant food system that has taken a lot of control and power away, not only from consumers, but also food producers. And the challenges that we face as a movement, as in a society, to take back take back the power, to resist the hegemony of capitalism, the corporate footprint over our food system, and also to rebuild and reconstruct new systems. And of course there is no one solution. And the reason why it's important to bring the youth to discussions like this, not only because 20% of the population in Africa comprise of people between the ages of 16 and 24, but they also comprise 60% of the unemployed people on the continent. So the future lies not only in our hands, but in their hands, and we have to co-create a new future with our youth. And I think that forums like this play a very important role towards building that alternative in terms of bridging the intergenerational rift or gap between people of my generation and a lot of the activists who have come here to the school. Yes, it's very unfortunate that if you look at the literature that has some kind of critical analysis of seed systems in the world, they talk about everything out of the capitalist mode of production and capitalist system, even research and development, as being informal, not worthy of recognition, of value, and has been relegated to the margins because it's not seen as productive activities. But I think that a lot of that has been, it's really a fallacy to categorize systems of nurturing of traditional knowledge, of food production, of cultural heritage, of celebration, of life as informal, particularly if one looks at the figures, the data, and this is in peer-reviewed publications, that even though there's been systematic erosion of biological diversity, of dispossession of communities of land, deforestation on a very large scale, and the violence and aggression of the Green Revolution, yet farmers still keep their own seed. And about 80 to 90% of the food produced on the continent that feeds about 80% of the population comes from seed managed by farmers under their control. So I think that we need to, turn also the population debate on its head and, talk about the 1.2 billion people who are aged in developed countries as part of that discussion, and the youth bulge on the continent, and address some of those challenges within that framework of rebuilding new societies, building already on what's already there. Because the narrative is about progress and modernity and feeding a burgeoning population, but it's also a systematic assault on farmer managed seed systems. They want to replace it, do away with it. So that's why you see more and more draconian laws being passed by our governments to outlaw the practice of saving farm safe seed. And that's the logic also behind genetic engineering and hybridization. You build into the technology, into biology, restrictions on saving and replanting farm safe seed to create markets, so continuing markets, dependence on multinational companies to supply seed, and restricting and outlawing, criminalizing age-old practices of replanting farm safe seed, of exchanging, of selling seed. Those systems are systematically coming under attack all over the world. And because it's kind of the beginning of life, the beginning of the food system, we believe that we have to link our struggles for land, for new politics, for new systems with our agrarian reform struggles, our seed sovereignty struggles, our struggles against genetic engineering and dangerous technologies, to be stronger and to have a much more holistic, I think, not only understanding, but have, a much more richer debate and more informed discussions around how to build new systems and societies. Look, I think that in every country, people are trying to build food sovereignty platforms. So not hierarchical, institutionalized networks, but loose networks of activists, of farmers, of producers, to come together to form an alliance at the national level around food sovereignty that encompasses a lot of these struggles for land, for a seed, and so on. And then this starts to coalesce into, so we have some regional networks in Southern Africa on food sovereignty, and then there is already established alliances with the food sovereignty movements globally, like Via Campesina, like the International Planning Commission, who lobby at the Food and Agriculture Organization to push agroecology into the global discourses and to stave off a lot of hijacking of discourses like agroecology and food sovereignty by the corporates. So I think those alliances exist. And I think in Mauritius and other places, alliances exist. I think it's about, connection, deepening, connecting with our southern African networks, connecting with the regional networks. There's also an alliance for food sovereignty in Africa that we need to connect with. So that it's all there. I think it's just about deepening connections and ongoing dialogues, exchanges, and resistance.